All right, so listen, this one thing literally has the power to change every sales conversation you ever have on the phone. Again, I know that is a big, massive claim, but it's what happened to me, and I'm hoping the same will happen for you. It will have that impact. So here's the deal. Let me give you 2 examples, and then we'll break down what it is that I'm talking about. And I'm almost home, so bear with me as I drive through my neighborhood. It's probably a little loud right now, but then we'll get into this. All right, so here is sales conversation over the phone number 1. Hi, this is Brandon with Comcast, and today we'd like to tell you about our new special. The person hangs up the phone immediately, just the same as you would. Now here's salesperson number 2. Hey, I'm not sure if I've got the right number. I was looking for Bob. Is this him? Now, which one do you feel that would work better if you were looking for Bob? Which one do you think would be better? Which opener? So we don't have to unpack, the entire script, this, that, the other thing, but let me just get out of the car. We'll turn this off and then we'll jump into this. Okay, so the reason why I think most of you, if you're taking this seriously, would say that you thought the second one sounded better was based on curiosity. And that's what today's video really is about. The more intrigue you can create with compelling curiosity, the better. Because the first one they both sound familiar in different ways. One was a pattern interrupt. That was example number 2. And the first one was familiar. Why? What did it sound like? Well, it sounded like a salesperson, it sounded like a telemarketer, to which none of us like to get those calls. So as soon as we have the high-pitched, that high inflection in our voice, automatic giveaway. This is a sales call, and really, I don't care what it is that you're calling about. I don't want anything to do with it because that high pitch, that high tonality, I know that sound. I know you must be selling something. Nobody that I know that I care about calls me with that type of inflection, tonality, enthusiasm. And because of that, reactance radar goes way, way up. And I want to be off that call as soon as I possibly can. Well, the other one sounds familiar too, because it sounds more like potentially how other people call me, right? So if someone calls you and your name is Bob, which is always the fictitious person I talk about, and your friend calls you and your name is Bob and you answer the phone, the person always says, hey, Bob. Always. Bob, what's up? Hey, Bob. So it's very natural. So your mind is saying, okay, this seems familiar. And then we play to curiosity. The more you can be curious, the more you can elicit curiosity from the prospect, the better, because the prospect, instead of them going down one path of reactance, they start to say to themselves, okay, well, what is this call? What is this about? Who is this and what is this about? The intrigue and the curiosity, we know based on all the research, all the studies, is one of the greatest techniques when it comes to influence and persuasion. So the more curious we can get the prospect when we make an outbound sales call, because they're not expecting our phone call. So when you have that high phone voice or that waiter or waitress voice, you know the voice I'm talking about. Hey, this is Brandon. Hey, is Bob around? Or is Mr. Bob around? That high pitch, that phone voice that I hear all too often, it is a dead nuts giveaway. This is a telemarketer. This is a sales call, which I want nothing to do with. You could literally give away a bag of $1 million, but if you have that tonality and that delivery, the person is going to hang up on you. So what we have to do is the exact opposite. When we call people, we almost have to act confused. We almost have to approach it like, just like I said, just like the words, hey, you know what? I'm not sure if I even have the right number, but I was looking for Bob. And now Bob says to himself, now you know you're calling Bob, but you're being very curious because we don't want to elicit reactance. We're trying to keep that reflex reactance as low as possible for as long as possible because and I'll make another video about this, something called conversation chunking, which is based on micro commitments. Because when we start a sales conversation over the phone, it's one thing after the next. I have to get past the intro to get into the next part of the conversation. Then I have to get through that part of the conversation to get to the next part of the conversation. Too many times we want to go from the intro to the close, which results in prospects hanging up on us, giving us objections that we can't handle, and then it becomes this back and forth, who's smarter, who's stronger, and it's all friction. So we want to be very, very curious. And we want the prospect to start off the conversation asking themselves, what is this call about, and who is this? These are the questions we want them to ask. The thought and the feeling we don't want them to have is, shit, I wish I did not pick up this phone. I want to get off this call as fast as I possibly can. And when you start getting into that high pitch, that high inflection, tonality and delivery, that is exactly what happens every single time. You think you're being like this polite, but really it's you being uncomfortable as hell making these sales calls, and it's doing you a lot of harm. So the next time you go and make an outbound sales call to a prospect, let's create some intrigue. Let's create some curiosity, because curiosity compels people to say to themselves, all right, I'll give this a second or two, more so than I would give had we started off the call with what we talked about. And that is what what you need every single second on a prospecting phone call. Every single second counts. And so you're literally buying seconds when you're more curious versus that person answers and it's like, hey, Bob, done, you're over. Dead giveaway. They don't want it. They're hanging up on you. So let's be very, very curious. Evoke curiosity, rather. And I think what you will find, not that I think, you will find, just like I did, just like every agent that I coach says the same thing every single time we get into a coaching session and I listen to one of their calls and we break down the call and I say, listen, your tonality inflection is too high pitched and you're turning the prospects off because only telemarketers communicate that way. So every time we change the intro, they buy themselves some more time to get into a meaningful conversation with the prospect. So try it out. Let me know what your thoughts are. Put it in the comments, and appreciate your time like always. If there's anything I can help you with, or you want to have a conversation about potentially working together, I'd be happy to do so. There's a link in the description, and I'll also put one in the comments. So appreciate the time, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.